just because you're good at something doesn't mean you should do it.
You are now tuning in to the Going North podcast with your host, best-selling author and professional speaker and member of the John Maxwell team, Dominic Dom Brightman. And every Monday and Thursday, we're going to hear the voice of a different author sharing their gifts, stories, and expertise to help you charge forward in life. Now let's get on with the show. And today on the Going North podcast, where it's a new decade of fabulous folks, today is going to be one heck of a special day because today we have a guest who has been, or should I say, has one heck of an interesting history. This gentleman right here is a former consulting actuary to Fortune 100 companies such as Sony Music, Chanel, and Exxon. And this author right here left this cushy Park Avenue job 20 years ago to build the world's largest coaching business. So my man's the Mount Everest of coaching right here. He became #1 on Google for life coaching, serving an audience of 150,000 coaches and coaching thousands of hours across 12 countries. And alongside his client successes, this wonderful author right here is no stranger to overcoming challenges himself. And that's the best thing ever, is someone who's overcome it. Because having overcome a full collapse of his paraglider and a fractured spine, witnessing the death of his sister at the age of 7, severe anxiety and depression, as well as a national gong show. And not only that, he's the author of the book called Get Paid for Who You Are, with a foreword by the legendary Jack Canfield. And not only that, he was nominated to the exclusive Transformational Leadership Council alongside other thought leaders such as Don Miguel Ruiz, John Gray, and as well as the fabulous Marianne Williamson. This author right here believes that the tough conversation we avoid are our doorways to confidence, success, and love, because they become defining moments which shape our world. So this guy right here coaches high-performing entrepreneurs, executives, and teams, and now prison inmates. Prison inmates, y'all. That's right. You heard it there, folks. To create amazing results and a deep connection, one tough conversation at a time. Let's give it up for Mr. DW himself, Mr. David Wood. How you feeling today?
Woo! I'm good, mate. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, man, thanks for asking to be on, man. It's great to be connected with other folks, and especially with such hard topics that you're mentioning, man, because it's tough conversations. That's something that a lot of folks tend to avoid nowadays, like even be included from time to time. And it's like, hey, it's really needed nowadays.
Yeah, I think tough conversations we naturally run from. We're creatures of comfort, and I include myself in that. But humans have the ability to override our natural instincts. So we have the ability to have a cold shower because we know it could be good for our nervous system. We have the ability to go to the gym and maybe experience some discomfort pushing through a personal barrier because we have faith that there'll be benefits to our body. And it's the same with tough conversations. We naturally, instinctively avoid them and run from them. But if we use our will to override that, we can get wonderful benefits out of it. So my job is to help people look for the benefits. Well, firstly, look for those tough conversations because the mind won't present them to you. You've got to find them. And then, or eventually they'll find you. And then secondly, to encourage people to look for what the upside is. So we can have more tough conversations and get more connected and get the results that we really want in the world.
Amen to that, indeed. That's what I'm talking about. And what led you to this discovery? Because it's not something that I guess a lot of folks really think about.
Yeah, it was an accident. Back, I'm 51 now. Back when I was 20, 26, I think, 27, someone recommended that I do a personal development course. And I'd only done one when I was a teenager, and the 10 years since, I hadn't done anything. And I thought, I could use getting to know myself. And they nearly scared me off because this company that I went to, they all wore name tags and they were all smiling way too much. And I'm like, this is a cult. I don't feel comfortable here. But I wanted the value. I wanted to see what would happen. So I ended up signing up, and they cracked my cynicism. I grew up in an Australian town. I'm very left-brained, logical, good with systems and numbers. And I didn't believe that there were people who really cared. And I also had a belief that self-help was for people who are weak, um, weak-willed, and just not able to, ironically, not able to handle life on their own. They had to go and get help from other people. But they cracked my cynicism, and I saw that they really were out to change the world. And they said, when you go back to your job on Monday, people will ask you if you've had a haircut because something will be different about you, but they won't know what. So they'll ask you if I had a haircut. And I swear it happened to me. Someone's like, wait, did you have a haircut? I'm like, no, no, bro, I didn't. So they were right. And I said, I'm only doing one course. That's it. And then, because I'm not going to be a self-help junkie. But the course included a 10-week seminar. So I was showing up just a little bit. I was only going to do like 2 or 3, and then I was going to drop out. But then I found myself volunteering to be a team leader on the first night. So now I was stuck. I had to come all 10 weeks. And then while I was doing that 10-week seminar, some people went and did the second course, and they came back and they were bouncing off the walls with enthusiasm and positivity and joy. And I said, I don't know what happened to you, but I want some of that. So I went and did the second one, but I said, I'm not doing any more. Just do the second one. And then I found myself coaching people. I couldn't help it. Someone was be stuck, things weren't making sense, and I changed somebody's life overnight. And I thought, I want more of this. And I found out if I did the third course, they would train me as a coach. So I feel like I got sucked in to having my life transformed. And then that gave me my career of coaching.
Sweet, sweet. Couldn't get enough of that personal development right there. That's right.
It's been a lifelong journey. It's hard for me to think of, well, I guess I could find things that are more important than personal growth, but I just think it's so, like, imagine if you went back the last 20 years and you took away all your life lessons. You kept your technical abilities and you could do your job and whatever, but you took away all your life lessons and all the insights and learnings about yourself. Imagine who you would be. Would you give that up? There's no way you would give up the awareness that you've gathered about yourself. So why wouldn't you want more? Why wouldn't you go and do personal development courses, read books, work with a coach so you can find your blind spots and have more success and more joy in life? To me, it's a lifelong journey.
And that's so true. It really is a lifelong journey because it's like with personal growth, there's no limit to how far you can go in terms of your growth. I mean, once you get to your 20s, I mean, the physical growth stops, but the mental growth and the spiritual growth and heck, even emotional financial growth, there's no limits on that.
Right.
That's right. No limits indeed. No limits indeed. And the beautiful thing is that you're able to take all of that personal development that you learned and you actually took it and put into a wonderful book, Getting Paid for Who You Are. So I know it's been a few years since that book's been out. So what's led to the publishing of that book?
I was wanting to write a book called Men Are Dumb and Women Are Mean. That's what I wanted to write because I'd done a lot of training with an organization called the Morehouse, which was an amazing organization, which taught me a lot about men and women. And I wanted to share that information with the public. And I actually did write a book called The Truth About Women, which was everything my limited male brain could understand about what I'd learned from the courses. And I wanted to do this book, but there didn't seem to be a lot of enthusiasm for it. And my partner at the time suggested that I write a book about how to travel the world, how to choose your own hours, how to share your passion with people, and even make money while you sleep, which was basically what I learned to do in the past 20 years. I created an internet business, which was very successful. And she said, why don't you write that book? And Tim Ferriss had just come out with a 4-hour work week, which annoyed me because I wished I'd come up with that title. And it was doing so well. And I'm like, all right, I need to write my book, which is kind of like the 4-hour work week, but here's one specific way to do it. And so there was a lot, because people were always asking me, how do you do it? How do you work from home? How do you work from Thailand when you want to? How do you have more money in your bank account when you wake up than when you went to bed? So I wrote the book, but it does feel like a past life for me. I did it because I was really good at that, and people seem to want to know how to do it. So, and I wanted to be an author. So I went and did that book. But then I've realized since then that just because you're good at something doesn't mean you should do it.
Mm.
And for years, for 10 or 15 years, I've been called more towards the personal. I love business coaching, and I'll always do that. I'm so keen about marketing and branding, and I'll just rave about business. But I've been wanting, and I worked with coaches for years, helping them build their businesses. But I've been wanting to work on the personal side. I get most lit up by learning something about humans. I get most lit up by seeing someone tap into their courage and seeing where they're afraid, and then helping them find a way that they can take a risk and go and do it, whether it's building their business or finding a partner or whatever it is. So I've been wanting to do it, but I think I didn't really trust that I could monetize it, because people will definitely pay for business coaching much more than they're willing to pay for personal coaching. But finally, I think I found the sweet spot. Because I'm good at both business coaching and life coaching, the people who come to me tend to be the people who want coaching on both. They don't just want a business specialist. They want someone who can talk about relationship issues and how they're feeling and how they manage influencing others. And they don't just want a life coach. They also want to talk about their hiring and their business strategy and how they can make more money in their business. So I think I've now found a sweet spot where I get to do that personal stuff. And the business coaching is what justifies the fees in people's minds. They're like, oh, well, I'm going to make at least that much money back from my business coaching or improving my career. Then all the life coaching I get is basically free.
Solid right there. Solid right there. And it's beautiful that you're able to get to the point where you can use what you're good at to what you're really great at and what you really want to do. And I love what you said there about helping folks just to tap into their courage, because that could be something that a lot of folks hide under the bed or something, or just keep it all hidden
Oh,
nowadays. Because
yeah. You know, in the last couple of years, I've created a new brand called Play for Real. And I realized that, and this relates to the courage thing. I realized I want people to live life fully now and not wait until their deathbed to go, oh, I regret not doing that, or I regret not being more truthful. I regret not being more self-expressed. I regret not being more daring. I regret not caring more for my relationships and myself. I don't want people to have those regrets. I want them to live a regret-free life. So I came up with Play for Real. Let's play the game of life and work. And remember, it's a game, so we don't get too serious and too stressed and too hung up on everything. But at the same time, let's play for real, like it really matters. And then I had to ask myself, well, what does that mean? What does it look like? And the 3 values that most resonate for me and have been most useful for me throughout my life are truth, daring, and caring. So I encourage myself all the time to be more truthful, daring, and caring, and that's part of my coaching.
Truthful, daring, and more caring. Ah, that's what I'm talking about. That's right. Dare to care more, indeed. Yes, indeed. And be truthful about the care. That's right. That's the real DC. The David cares, my friend. That's right. Who needs watching DC? It's all about the David cares, baby. And it's true though. It's like with with life, it's like, yeah, it's a game, and one thing we kind of do forget is like, hey, we gotta play to win and play to not, instead of playing to not lose. And it's like a huge difference from that. It's I guess it's all depends on a matter of intention, I guess. Do you think that might be the thing that may be missing? Just the proper intentions?
I don't know. It's interesting. When you say missing intentions, that seems to me like a separate topic and an important topic. I said once to someone, I don't know if I know about intention, like what is that? And I don't know if I use it. So I mean, I'm interested in that as a topic, but it doesn't resonate for me. I think what I hope, and I think the people who come to me already have an intention of growing and of improving their lives. So otherwise, they wouldn't find me. So that's there. And then I speak in terms of goals. That's a word that I'm more comfortable with. Um, where am I heading? So those would be the intentions. What are we creating over the next 6 to 12 months so that if we were to be speaking a year from now and looking back and celebrating, what would we be celebrating? So we create those goals, and I would call those intentions. Would you say intentions are something else?
Not really, because intentions and goals, they would be a match. It's like what basically what would your goal be for like a conversation, or your goal for doing
Yeah,
this activity or that activity?
yeah. And I'm very goal oriented. So so now I'm coming down on the side of yes, I'm all about intentions. Um, See, there are two vastly different ways to operate. One way, which is super important, is surrender. Byron Katie, who's a teacher I love, says, if I had one prayer, it would be this: God, spare me the need for appreciation and approval. But the exciting bit for me is the first bit: if I had one prayer,
Mm.
implying that she doesn't have prayers. She is a surrender machine, loving what is happening. And the Buddhists say, and I imagine a lot of the spiritual traditions say, that desire is where you start to suffer. Or I would say attachment. When you want something, you get attached to it, then you can suffer. So I think there are times in our lives when we want to practice surrender and loving what's happening and not doing anything else. And I'm getting opportunities all the time for that. I've had health issues for many, many years, and I find it very difficult to surrender and embrace what's happening. I want to fight it. And recently I did a medicine journey taking ayahuasca, which is a jungle plant medicine, and it was brutal
Oh
for
yeah.
me. And I suffered a lot. And I suspect that a lot of the suffering was coming from a lack of surrender, that I was fighting it. I hated it. I wanted it to stop, which made it worse. So this is one school of thought: to just surrender and enjoy and love what is. And Katie's got a book called Loving What Is. But then the other one, and the metaphor I use for that is being adrift on the ocean. You haven't set your sail, you haven't set your rudder, you haven't set a course. You just you're just floating. But the other way is to create intentions. Humans have willpower. So we can create something in our minds and say, I want this could be better. And I want that to be better. And there's a game right there. Over there is better than over here. That's the definition of a game. So as soon as we create a goal, we've created a game and it gives us something to do, which is fun. We can enjoy the journey and then we can enjoy the result, whether it be to improve your business or your career or your relationship or to improve your self expression. So I love both schools of thought and I tend to weave both into my coaching. And sometimes it's time to surrender. You know, you're awake at 4 o'clock in the morning and you're hating that you're awake. Make friends with the night, make friends with being awake instead of fighting it. But then in the light of day, you can set an intention to sleep better and we can create a plan so you can take action towards it. So does that make sense? You've got two different schools of thought and you can ping pong between them based on what's most appropriate at the time.
Yeah, it makes sense to me, especially with the part of just surrendering to, like, I guess, in a way, divine guidance and what the higher power has in store for you. Because, I mean, it's like you sometimes, like, you push so hard with so much force that you end up missing your target, that sometimes you may just lose the target. But on another day, when you forget about it for a couple days, it's like, all right, it just comes back to you in another better way.
Hmm. Yeah, hearing that has me think that, sometimes, so for listeners listening to this, just consider which camp are you in? If you're in one of these camps, are you constantly pushing, constantly striving, and maybe overdoing it? And it'd be nice to kick back a little bit and flow with life. Are you getting attached and stressed that things aren't happening? Or are you in the other camp? Are you floating along and not being as intentional as you would like? And your life could use some goal setting and some direction.
Ah, that's true. That's true indeed. Got to choose which camp.
Yeah. And maybe you flip flop between, maybe you're in the surrender camp and it feels great. You don't need to change anything. Maybe you're in the go getter camp and that feels great. You don't need to change anything. But just consider, could you use more of one or the other and then go in that direction?
There you go. And with that, it could be kind of interesting too, because with that, I guess there's maybe a way to straddle the fence on that one, but not really.
What do you mean?
in a way of, in a way, it's like some days like, all right, maybe have an easier day where you rest, and then there's another day where it's like, all right, you're full goal getter mode where you want to charge after your goals and just wanting to try to move the needle in certain directions.
I like the sound of that. That sounds like, someone could have wonderful balance with that. Take a couple of days off and just totally relax and go with the flow, and then have some days where you're cranking it, or as Gary Vaynerchuk would say, crushing it. I like that, moving back and forth between the two.
Oh yeah, that's right. Almost like that yin yang symbol.
Yes, which is part of my logo. In the Play for Real logo, there's I didn't even ask for this, but the designer created what looks like a corporate yin yang symbol. And so I love that you reminded me of that, because I don't think I'd realized before this interview that that was part of my coaching. There are times for the yin, times for the yang. I actually burned myself out very badly once or twice by pushing too hard. I was a spiritual warrior. I can do anything. I'm scared of abandonment. I can do open relationships, no problem. I'm scared of heights. I can paraglide at 10,000 feet above the Himalayas. I was pushing, 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 and I ended up going into deep, deep depression. And I'm
Hmm.
feeling grateful right now that I came out of it, because when you're in it, it doesn't look like you're ever going to come out. So I learned that there needs to be a balance and I need to respect this body and system, and I do have limits. It was quite humbling for me to realize sometimes it's just too much. So if you're pushing too hard, can you give yourself permission to ease up? And if you're not pushing enough, can you find what it takes to step up, start creating some really juicy goals?
Ah, beautiful right there. And I love what you said there about respecting your body, because that's something that we all just need to remember because we only get one of these. We only get one of them.
As far as I know.
There's that part too. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's like, all right, there's this whole afterlife thing. It's like, all right, do you really know what happens after it's all gone?
Right. But just in case this is my only life, I really do want to make the most of it.
Yes, sir, indeed. And you're definitely making the most of it, because one thing that really interests me about your bio is that it kind of goes from like highs to lows. So it comes from all the way from high up performing entrepreneurs all the way down to prison inmates. So how did that all come together?
I've been wanting to feel like I'm doing some kind of charitable work. I've been feeling that for years, and judging myself as being too self-centered. And I'm so impressed and inspired when I see other people volunteering at a soup kitchen or donating money to charities and doing all this good work. So I got in touch with Coaches for Causes, and they hooked me up with a nonprofit in Switzerland. And I was like, all right, great. Now I'm coaching a CEO that's making a difference in the world. That felt good, but I still wanted more. And someone told me about a prison program. He said, I'm going to assist with this prison program, and they're teaching authentic relating and tough conversations, which I'm all about. And I said, can I get in on that? This sounds perfect. I get to feel like I'm making a difference, go into a really fascinating environment. I've always been fascinated by prison and freedom and the lack of freedom and scared of it. And at the same time, I could work with something I really love and care about, which is authentic relating, how to be more human, how to have deeper connection, how to relate with people, how to have more influence over people. And we're doing this work in corporations, government organizations, and prisons. So I said, sign me up. How do I get in on this? And he put me in touch with the executive director, and she said, come along and assist at one. So I went and assisted, and then the next one I co-led, and that's how I got into it.
Awesome, right there. And it's shows that your heart's in the right place indeed. And because those folks need help, because it's like, all right, at this may have made the wrong decision at one point in life, then it's like, all right, they need some help to redirect themselves on top of the silence that they may have while behind bars.
Yeah. Oh, I really can't even get my head around it. I mean, I struggle, and I'm blessed. I've got to be in the top 1% of the world, at least, maybe 0.1 or 0.01% in terms of my privileges. And I can struggle. I can struggle each day. And so to be in prison and to have so many rights taken away, and also respect, like your status just goes way down when you're in prison. I go in there and I'm an important person because I can leave. And if they offended me or said something, that could go badly for them. You know, like you can offend someone out on the street and there's really no consequence. But they can't do it because all their rights have been, not all their rights, but a lot of their rights have been taken away. They're told when, what they can eat. Sometimes they need permission to go to the bathroom. It's This is why we have prison movies, because I think it's fascinating, the whole concept. And if we can make their lives easier, because firstly, on the outside, their life probably wasn't easy. A lot of these people have been abused physically, sexually. They've turned to drugs as a way to cope, perhaps turned to crime as a way to fuel their drug habit. And Now, so their life was already bad, and now they're in prison. And then to make it worse, after say 2 years or 4 years or 5 years, or I just met a young woman who was sentenced to 25 years, they've got to get out and function in society. They were having trouble before. How are they going to do after 10 or 20 years in an institution? They put us through a game, through a simulation, a parole simulation, and we had to mock getting out of prison. And then we had a checklist of everything we had to do. We had to go to this office and register for ABC, but oh, can't register, don't have an ID. So we got to go to this office, oh, but don't have money for the bus ticket. Oh, now I've got to go back over here, get bus tickets, and then I've got to report to an interview, and then I've got to get all these other IDs. I've got to get a urine test because it's been mandated. And I failed. I failed parole. I was sent to rehab in prison. It was almost impossible to get everything right and to juggle the money and to pay the rent and everything. I ended up in a halfway house, and then I was sent back to prison because apparently I failed a drug test in the simulation. So
Okay.
I have a lot of, yeah, it's ridiculous. Like 6 out of 8 times that I was tested, I failed. I'm like, come on. And then because I failed the drug test, I lost other privileges. Anyway, I have such respect now for the challenges that they're facing when they get out. So what we're doing is showing them how to relate, because on the outside, if they get triggered or angry, they can't blow up. They got a record now. So we teach them how to practice something called emotional Aikido and be able to handle someone's charge coming at them without blowing up, how to relate to an employer in a job interview, how to relate to their family, friends, their kids who might resent them for screwing up their lives as well, right? They need all these interpersonal techniques. If they can't relate, they're not going to be able to function in society. So can I give a quick plug for the nonprofit? Because they're doing wonderful work.
Of course, do too if you want.
Thank you. It's called Authentic Relating International. And the executive director is Laurie Lazar. And she like something lit a fire under her. And she started cold calling prisons in Colorado saying, I've got this great program you really should try. And they said yes. And so she's just doing incredible work building this nonprofit from nothing. And they'd appreciate any donation, even $5 a month. You become some kind of club member of Authentic Relating International. So the price of a latte, you could really make a difference. It would probably mean $5 a month over a year might mean that prison inmate, one more prison inmate gets to do the training. Partly because of funding, we have to deny people. When we went to La Vista Women's Prison, we had 200 women apply to do the training, and we could only accept 20. So your donation goes a long way. You can go to authenticrelating.org, authenticrelating.org, and if there's a place to put a comment, tell them you heard about this on the Going North podcast.
Sweet. Awesome indeed. That's definitely honorable work. And I love what you said about emotional Aikido. So is that going to be a future blog article series or maybe another separate book down the road?
It'll probably be part of a book, because with tough conversations, generally what I teach is how to bring a tough conversation. You're the one leading it. You've got an issue. You might be, you've got a secret you're sitting on and you want to confess, or someone's screwing up, or they're late. They're not doing what they promised, say at work, and you want to hold them accountable. So many tough conversations that are just awkward. So normally I'm training people in how to bring it, but what do you do when someone's coming at you with some charge? I had a great example from today. I won't go into the details because I don't have permission yet, but I tried to help someone. I did a little bit of work, tried to help someone, and they weren't happy with how I did it. They had some problems, you know, they're feeling upset and triggered, it seems, from the message I got. And I'm feeling underappreciated. I'm like, maybe you could start with a thank you. Maybe like, thanks for trying and thanks for doing that. And here's some things to bear in mind for the future. I felt defensive. I felt small and like scolded, which are very common human emotions, but it took me a few minutes to work out what I was feeling. I was just annoyed and I was going to respond. I really wanted to respond. Also, the message said, I want to hear your take on this, but not until tomorrow. Like, really, you want
What?
to tell me what's going on, but now
What?
you want me to hold on it until you're ready. So I was pretty triggered. And I'm really grateful that I waited and I started getting curious. What's going on with me? What am I feeling? And because really, who cares? Like ultimately, in the scheme of life and the universe, that someone's got a reaction over there. Really, do I care? But at the time, I did, and so I took a little time and I thought, this is a chance to practice emotional Aikido. This is where you don't throw your stuff back. You sit and you breathe and you do nothing except listen. So I started, I'm like, oh, wow, I'm not even interested in getting her world. So I started getting curious and I started, all right, what did she really say? And I went through literally what she said and I started putting myself in her shoes and I can see all of those things being valid. Like, okay, if I was in your shoes and this is how it occurred, I might have all these feelings and that's probably pretty uncomfortable. So I'm sorry that feels so rough. Not my intention. This is probably what I'll say. Practicing emotional Aikido, when we do talk, I will listen. I will reflect back what I've heard so that she knows she's been heard and I can find out if there's anything else. Like, all right, you're upset about this. You think I screwed up with this. Uh, blah, 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 blah. Did I get it right? Is there anything else? Just give her a chance to get everything out. And then once all that's out, and I say, is there more? And she says, no. Now there might be room for me to share my point of view. Now I might be able to say something like, would you be open to hearing what's going on for me? And then if she's a yes, then I can share. I would like to feel more appreciated. That's, I'm noticing I'm really wanting that and I may not get it, but I'm wanting to feel appreciated. And I'm happy to go through these things point by point. I apologize for point 3. You're right. I got that wrong. And here's my reasoning on these other points, and we'll sort it out together. That's emotional Aikido. And I'm grateful for it today because initially I was triggered. It was stopping me getting ready for this podcast. And I just wanted to defend. That's the instinct. Just defend and attack and say, screw you. I'm not going to help you again. But as I sat with it, other parts of the brain started to get engaged and I started getting curious and interested. And now I can say, when I talk to us, I can say, I took a real ride with that. I got wonderfully triggered. It was a good one. And I learned a lot about myself. And now I'm really ready to talk. Totally different energy. And I want the world to have access to this. Imagine if all our politicians had access to this, all our CEOs, all our kids. That's, I notice I'm excited. I want that for the world. So yeah, emotional Aikido is pretty damn cool.
Ah, yes, sir, it is. Yes, sir, it is. It's almost like a superpower when you think about it.
It is. It is absolutely a superpower. And I'm amazed and stunned that I have done so much training. I've been training 27, 37, for 20, it's almost 25 years in personal growth, communication, self-awareness, and I consider myself a world-class expert on those things. But still, it's it's so easy to be triggered. Someone cuts you off in traffic. Boom, right? Something goes off. There's I forget the science. There's something about the amygdala, or whatever. But there's something that shuts down in the brain when you get triggered and you go into fight or flight, and you don't have access to all your faculties. So if you can take, I'm just amazed that it still happens to me. It took 5 minutes before I even realized this might be a time for emotional Aikido. And I teach it. So it's a lifelong journey for me. I'm still obviously a student, even while I'm a teacher. And I'm just thinking, if that's me after all this training, what's it like for the rest of the population? How many of us are walking around being reactive and not even knowing it? Not even knowing part of our brain is shut down, and then just reacting and emoting at somebody and making it worse. Now you've got to fight and it's a blow up. Aikido is the art of flowing, even using the other person's energy against them, although you were trying to use it for them.
Oh, yes, indeed. And heck, maybe today's situation from earlier was probably something to add on to your repertoire when teaching others.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'll probably use this example. It's just first you got to catch it. You got to catch. Oh, wait, I'm having a reaction. This is a chance to practice emotional Aikido and listening, and you got to catch it when it's time for you to bring something. You've got an issue with someone, and you're being silent about it. There's a number of things I'd invite you to do at my website if these resonate for you. One, you can download the Tough Conversations Blueprint. It's a 4-step blueprint. It'll really save your butt when you're going into your next tough conversation. You can also request a discovery session with me. If you qualify for a free session, then I don't charge for that. It's a way I find people to work with long term. We'll create a plan for your life and business. And also, I'd love you to join my new podcast if you want to listen to me as well as Dom, and that's Tough Conversations with David Wood. And you can do all of those things at playforreal.life. Playforreal.life.
Beautiful. Well, there you have it, folks. Go on out there and check out all of David's wonderful goods. We'll also put a link to the site for that nonprofit to help out the prison inmates, indeed, so that way we can increase the amount that they get to serve every year. Because you too can save a human soul one latte at a time, or should I say, one price of a latte at a time. Yes, indeed. And before you go, a question for every guest, and that is, if you were to wake up tomorrow and you're 25 in the year of 2020, what advice would you give to yourself now that you have all your knowledge and experience?
Wow. I'm 25. I think I'd have to say, my instinct is to say, do a lot of personal growth. Do it early. I did it at age 27. I wish I'd done it at 17. Landmark Education is the company I went to. They're all around the world. You can find one probably in your hometown or city. Yeah, I'd say, David, get into that earlier, because that's going to drive everything else. Oh, and maybe also get into internet marketing. I wish I'd done that even earlier. I was pretty early, but get into that. That's going to be the future.
How's it going, you super special, awesome human? Since you made it to the end of this episode, it looks like you really enjoyed yourself. Since you enjoyed this episode, be sure to share it with at least 3 people in your network and tell them what you really liked about this episode.